very kind to be present here. So now I have the honor to invite His Excellency Mr. Hambaza Matebosyan, the Minister of Environment of Armenia, to speak about the question of, as the president of the CBD's next important COP, what would be your vision about the upcoming COP to be held in Armenia? Minister Matebosyan, as you are all aware, is the COP president, but he's also the Minister of Environment. And prior to being the Minister of Environment, he was appointed as the Deputy Prime Minister of Armenia in 2021 and 22. So he has a long history of being a central figure in the Armenian government. So we have the honor to invite you, Minister.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your invitation. This is a great event about a very important topic, the biodiversity and the funds. Those two main topics that Armenia is dealing with right now, and to COP17 is #1 priority for the Ministry of Environment, one of the top priorities for the government of Armenia. And next year, I'm looking forward to meet all of you there in Armenia in October. Excellencies, distinguished colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, Minister, once again, dear colleagues, it is a pleasure to join you at this important event on realizing the full potential of the Global Biodiversity Framework Fund. I thank the Global Environmental Facility for guiding the transition of the GBFF from a promising launch to a powerful engine driving global biodiversity recovery, fulfilling the ambitious goals of the Kunming-Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework. Established at the request of the parties to the Convention on Biological Diversity at COP15 and launched less than a year later, today we can already observe key achievements, such as growing financial support, innovating financing, broad country reach with early implementation progress, and a focus on indigenous peoples and local communities through direct funding and collaborative approaches with communities. The GBFF is vital for turning the ambitious targets of the KMGBF into reality, with COP17 serving as a key milestone for reviewing progress and securing commitments, including financial ones like those facilitated by the GBFF. Dear colleagues, last year, parties to the Convention on Biological Diversity gave Armenia the honor to host the conference of the parties to the Convention on Biological Diversity. The conference will take place in Yerevan from 19 to 30 of October 2026. Armenia is entrusted with the responsibility of consolidating and promoting international efforts under the Convention on Biological Diversity to contribute to addressing current environmental challenges faced by humanity. COP17 is expected to be a pivotal moment, one that reinvigorates global commitment to implementing the KMGBF, in particular focusing on 4 goals: protecting nature, fostering prosperity with nature, ensuring fair benefit sharing, and boosting investment and collaboration. Let me shed light on key issues that deserve our collective attention. First, the global review of collective progress under the KMGBF. At COP16, countries agreed to carry out a worldwide assessment of how much progress has been made in putting the KMGBF into action. The global review outlines both the goal and the path forward to collective progress, will be the central focus or the centerpiece of the COP17. The review will be inclusive and transparent, and it will draw from national reports, regional discussions on MBSEPs, the GBF monitoring framework, and scientific and knowledge-based inputs. It is essential that the knowledge and data of IPLCs be incorporated, as listening to those who steward biodiversity is key to producing an accurate and meaningful global assessment. Second, strengthening synergy is in finance and means of implementation. At COP17, together with parties and stakeholders, we will explore possible new initiatives on how to ensure complementary among the climate, biodiversity, and finance streams in national implementation, making use of financial mechanisms, including innovative ones, to generate tangible solutions to close the biodiversity finance gap while supporting all parties with biodiversity implementation needs, as well as indigenous peoples and local communities. Inclusive leadership and our invitation to COP17. To advance the core goals of COP17, Armenia aims to lead with unity, scientific integrity, and shared responsibility. We are committed to turning ambition into implementation and fostering progress within the global biodiversity community. The Armenian presidency will work to identify common ground among parties, strengthen partnerships, and encourage diverse perspectives to shape effective outcomes. Excellencies, distinguished delegates, and colleagues, under its presidency, Armenia is fully committed to ensuring that COP17 in Yerevan becomes a decisive moment for advancing action for nature, guided by determination, responsibility, and sustained effort. Armenia warmly welcomes all parties and stakeholders to join in building bridges across ecosystems, nations, and generations, while upholding the principle that no one is left behind. We will spare no effort to work with all parties and stakeholders to bridge positions and deliver meaningful results that will help unlock the potential of biodiversity finance mechanisms, identify new sources and means of finance, and channel them to where they are most needed. COP17 calls on all of us to rise to shared purpose, taking action for nature, for our planet, and for our future generations. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister Matebosyan, and also highlighting the importance of bridging the finance gap, as well as really mobilizing action for the successful COP17. We're very appreciative of your presence here. Now I have the honor to invite Her Excellency, Madame Arlette Soudan-Nuno, Minister of Environment, Sustainable Development, and of the Congo Basin of the Republic of Congo, to speak about her experience and the Congo's experience and regions to access the GBFF. And also, we would like to ask her to share her perspectives on the GBFF and the GEF and any expectations you might have of us moving forward. So, Madam, we have the honor to ask you to take the podium. And her
I'm sorry, I'm speaking French because I'm not speaking English, and I think your colleague can translate. Okay?
We will do the interpretation.
Okay,
thank you.
Vous êtes surpris de le dire en anglais et vous dites elle parle pas anglais. Non, I'm not speaking English. I'm trying English. I speak French. En tout cas, merci, chers collègues, qui êtes président de la COP17, collègues de l'Arménie. Vraiment, on est ravis de vous avoir ici, également le représentant de notre convention de la CDB ici. Vraiment, merci. Et puis, la grande directrice qui, au nom du FEM et les équipes, sont ici. Je vais vous faire l'économie de la présentation sur le plan du volet Congo. Cela a été brillamment repris ici dans le cadre du GBFF. Je préfère que vous ayez un micro pour que vous puissiez en tandem. Sinon, je vais vous perdre en route.
Merci.
Voilà, je vous en prie.
I'd like to thank the chair and express my appreciation to the Minister of Environment of Armenia, who's the chair of the COP.
COP 17, COP 17.
Of COP 17.
Yeah.
And I wanted to just go straight, and I'm not going to waste much time on the Congo Basin and presenting the Congo Basin. I'll go straight to the subject.
C'est représenté pas seulement le bassin du Congo, mais il a présenté dans le cadre des 3 pays qui portent les financements du GBFF, l'expérience de la République du Congo. Donc je ne reviendrai pas là-dessus, en fin de compte, c'est ce que j'ai dit précisément.
You want also to express your appreciation to the other 3 countries that have received financing from the GBFF.
Voilà, je vous remercie. J'aimerais vraiment saluer le rôle très déterminant, fondamental du Fonds du cadre mondial pour la biodiversité, pour cet instrument véritable de la mise en œuvre du cadre mondial pour la biodiversité qui a été adopté à Kunming-Montréal. Ce mécanisme, il faut le dire, il est essentiel pour transformer nos engagements. Des engagements collectifs en résultats tangibles qui, comme l'a rappelé mon collègue de l'Arménie, sont au service de la planète et des générations futures.
I wanted to make sure to thank the GBFF, which is an extremely important instrument that is dedicated to the implementation of the global framework that we adopted in Canning, Montreal. This mechanism is essential to transform our collective engagements into tangible results that is going to help the planet and that is also going to make sure that we look after the well-being of the future generations.
Très rapidement, j'aimerais également rappeler que ce projet inclut la gestion de tout ce qui est social, environnemental, la gestion des risques, également des catastrophes, qui porte dans ce fonds que nous souhaitons les financements levés, les pertes et dommages, et également l'inclusion des populations autochtones et des communautés locales, ainsi que l'intégration de la dimension genre aujourd'hui.
What is also crucial is the fact that, this fund encompasses a whole range of things, including looking after the interests of the indigenous people, making sure that gender considerations are very well taken care of, in particular.
Je vais vous prendre un exemple. Vous savez, moi, je viens de la région Afrique qu'on appelle le bassin du Congo, que vous connaissez tous aujourd'hui. Le bassin du Congo, c'est, après l'Amazonie par sa superficie, le premier séquestrateur net carbone de la planète en matière de CO2.
I wanted to briefly talk about the Congo Basin ecosystem. This is, after the Amazonia ecosystem, one of the largest ecosystem that helps us make sure that carbon absorption, carbon sink takes place on the planet.
Pourquoi? Mais parce que nos forêts que vous connaissez, les forêts du bassin du Congo, vraiment séquestrent 1,5 milliard de tonnes de CO2. Mais nos écosystèmes particuliers qu'on appelle les tourbières du bassin du Congo stockent à elles seules près de 30 milliards de tonnes de CO2. Les tourbières en anglais, ce sont les peatlands. Et ces écosystèmes font la différence aujourd'hui. C'est pour ça que nous avons voulu venir ici, invités par nos partenaires du FEM, parce qu'à un moment donné, nous allons parler de la mobilisation volontaire des bailleurs qui sont ici, qui soutiennent les États, qui soutiennent cette institution qui est le Fonds mondial pour l'environnement. Et nous, aujourd'hui, si les financements n'arrivent pas du côté du FEM, nous ne pourrons pas continuer à préserver, conserver intacts ces écosystèmes où, vous l'avez compris, deviennent les remparts de l'humanité en matière de changement climatique.
I wanted to make sure that I refer to some numbers. The Congo Basin ecosystem absorbs 1.5 is that a milliard or a million?
Un milliard.
Billions tons of carbon. And within that ecosystem, I think it's important to mention the peatlands. They absorb close to 30 billion.
Et vous comprenez que nous sommes ce rempart aujourd'hui de la vie sur Terre.
So this is why it is extremely important that I'm standing here with the GEF to make sure that we continue preserving that ecosystem, because that ecosystem is actually what is really helping us stand between life and what I will call destruction of the planet.
Je lance un appel, hein, vraiment solennel, parce que j'ai la double casquette. Il est vrai que la directrice m'a présentée comme ministre de l'Environnement de la République du Congo, mais je suis également la secrétaire exécutive de la Commission Climat du Bassin du Congo, qui est une institution de l'Union africaine et qui a 17 membres qui portent 2 communautés économiques régionales de l'Afrique, à savoir la communauté des États économiques d'Afrique centrale et celle économique de l'Afrique de l'Ouest, de l'Est plutôt, de l'Est.
I'm here as the Minister of Environment of Congo, but I am the Executive Secretary of the Climate Commission. This is an institution that was established by the African Union Commission. It has 17 members, and participants are from 2 economic zones in Africa, the Central African Economic Community and also the East Africa Economic Community.
Donc nous sommes aujourd'hui dans ce qu'on appelle la reconstitution tous les 4 ans du FEM. Vous allez le voir certainement dans la déclaration qui, après nos assises, vont rappeler à peu près ce que c'est que le FEM et ce que le FEM apporte dans la régulation ou dans la mobilisation des financements aujourd'hui dans le cadre de la biodiversité aux côtés donc de la convention de la CDB aujourd'hui. Mais nous avons donc besoin aujourd'hui que les bailleurs se mobilisent pour que nous puissions autour du FEM lever des financements pour financer le FEM 9 qui arrive pour les États et accompagner la mise en œuvre de la protection de la biodiversité, comme je l'ai rappelé, comme cela a été présenté ici dans la présentation bien faite par nos amis du FEM, que nous avons tous suivi tout à l'heure. Et donc, j'aimerais vraiment inviter, à l'occasion de ce point qui va être fait ici à Nairobi, sur le FEM aujourd'hui, que nous puissions réellement, parce que nous, les États, nous sommes victimes de l'assèchement un peu des financements que nous n'arrivons plus à lever du côté du FEM, tant la rareté aujourd'hui, vous savez que les financements sont bénévoles aujourd'hui, mais nous avons besoin de vraiment les bailleurs, qu'ils ne se lassent pas et qu'ils continuent à accompagner cet instrument des États, ce grand partenaire qui est donc le FEM. J'aimerais également peut-être rappeler une démarche par rapport à... je vais vous laisser traduire, s'il vous plaît. Excusez-moi.
Okay. Merci beaucoup, Madame la Ministre.
I'm sorry.
Let me make sure that I remind you that the replenishment process of the GEF has started. We are in the 9th replenishment process. I want to make sure that we appreciate the work done by the GEF, but we all understand the international environment, how financing resource mobilization has become a challenge. So I cannot but insist that collectively we call on our partners, the donors, to make sure that the replenishment, the 9th replenishment is a success, and that we as countries that are receiving the resources are able to implement the projects that GEF is financing.
Je vais vous prendre un exemple pour terminer mon propos, en vous disant que le grand projet qui est en train d'être mis en œuvre ici, le GBFF, nous avons besoin dans ce cadre-là, dans le GBFF, du multisectoriel, qu'il y ait des rencontres avec multi-acteurs, multi-pays, une collaboration transfrontalière pour nous permettre de conserver, de préserver les atouts de ce développement durable en ayant la même compréhension, le même langage. Et c'est pour ça que je terminerai en lançant solennellement ce que je vous ai dit autrement. Donc je lance un appel ici solennel aux partenaires internationaux, les bailleurs, les ONG, à soutenir la mise en œuvre de ce projet. Mais au-delà de cet appui que je voudrais adresser particulièrement au président du FEM et ses équipes, qui sont essentielles pour les allocations du GBFF, que cela soit renforcé pour les pays africains qui portent une part considérable de la biodiversité mondiale. Vous savez, nous avons abrité en 2023 à Brazzaville le sommet des 3 bassins des écosystèmes forestiers et de biodiversité de la planète. C'est votre modeste ministre ici qui était à la manœuvre, à l'organisation pour les 3 commissions, les 3 bassins de l'organisation et de la coordination de ces assises avec les Nations Unies et le programme des Nations Unies pour l'environnement et autres agences du système des Nations Unies, les partenaires et autres, d'avoir abrité donc à Brazzaville ce grand sommet. Mais qu'est-ce qu'on a retenu de ce sommet? Mais que les 3 bassins que nous constituons, le bassin de l'Amazonie, le bassin du Bornéo-Mekong Asie du Sud-Est et le bassin du Congo portent 80% de la biodiversité mondiale. Donc il est important vraiment qu'une part considérable que nous avons de la biodiversité continue à porter donc ces financements. Et je terminerai en disant tout simplement, mon pays, la République du Congo, réaffirme donc sa détermination à protéger la biodiversité et à transformer les défis environnementaux en levier de développement durable. Car la biodiversité est notre patrimoine commun et sa préservation est une responsabilité partagée. C'est pourquoi nous attendons l'invitation de mon collègue, ministre de l'Environnement de l'Arménie, président de la COP17, de la Convention de la CDB, pour nous inviter justement à venir dans son pays renforcer les engagements des États à ce niveau. Je vous remercie.
The GBFF should be seen as a major tool of cooperation among countries. We need to make sure that we use this leverage to develop some meaningful activities that are related to the objectives of the convention. I wanted also to call on everybody, donors, recipient countries, NGOs, and etc., to make sure that they support the GBFF, and we need to really put a lot of efforts in reinforcing what we do to preserve the biodiversity. And I also want to make sure to remind you that in 2023, we had a major meeting in Brazzaville and that we organized, and I was at the center of it, a major meeting of the 3 major global ecosystems that exist today. She mentioned the Amazonia, the Borneo, and the Congo ecosystem that represent actually 80% of the biodiversity of the globe, that we should continue preserving them because these are necessary for the generation to come. And she also says that she's looking forward to COP17 and expecting the invitation to come as soon as possible, and we'll all make sure that we are in Armenia. She also said that she thinks that Africa should be really a priority of disbursement when it comes to the GBFF, because this is a continent that is in need of those resources. And again, let me thank you very much and appreciate the fact that I was invited to come and address this gathering. Thank you.
Je vous remercie. On peut l'applaudir, s'il vous plaît. Merci.
Thank you, Madam Minister, and thank you also to my colleague Sekou for the excellent sharing of information. And at this point, I would like to inform you that COP17 presidency has to go to another meeting, and we really would like to thank for his presence here. And once again, thank you for your very active engagement in this conversation. Okay, we will continue with our agenda. Now we have the pleasure of having CBD, Asad Nakvi, who's the Director of Implementation Support Division, to really talk about, from his perspective and CBD's perspective, how important is a GBFF to the implementation and achievement of the coming Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework. Should I introduce you? Okay, good. So you can introduce yourself.
So thank you very much. Honorable Minister, you made made such a strong case for GBFF that it's very hard to add any more weightage to it. But that's a request to all of you. So my first message was, and that has been conveyed far more eloquently, that support generously the GBFF, its replenishment, and there are reasons for it. And the two reasons that I took from Benjamin. Number one, it's very focused on the Global Biodiversity Framework. It is the mechanism which is exclusively focused on biodiversity framework. Number two, it's far more efficient. As you saw, the things move very fast in GBFF, and it responds to the needs of the countries far faster than other funds and the families of funds which exist. So thank you so much for making that case very well. So then I don't have to say it again. Now, my second part is that those of you who know Target 19 and the GBF, Global Biodiversity Framework, Target 19 is the defining test of the world, that how we overcome the risks to our economies, our prosperity, and possibly even the existence on planet. Nothing moves without financing. So in the COP15, the world agreed on Target 19. And I would like to really thank those funding partners of GBF, GBFF, and other funds which have made the move really well. So on financing, both the private sector and public finance, we need to appreciate that things are going well, though the gaps exist. So we are very, very, very grateful from the CBD side to all funding partners who are investing in different ways to make sure that we achieve the Target 19, and the developing countries and the countries in transition do receive the funding which is required for them to fulfill and achieve the 23 targets. So a big thank you to those. However, going forward, we do expect that the ambitions that the developing countries have set will be met with the funding. So we are currently doing a funding needs assessment as a Secretariat of Biological Diversity, and we will be providing that for GEF 9 replenishment. What we have learned from the preliminary findings is the ambition has gone up. The countries are ready to scale up their biodiversity action, and we need to correspond by providing them the means of implementation, finance being the central one of them, so that the 2030 is the target. The next 9th replenishment will go up to 2030, so the stars are aligned in that sense. The only missing star is financing, and we can make sure that that is also aligned with that. Number two, so that is my second message. Usually I have 3 messages, so that was the first one. The number 2 is, I have a request to the countries who are beneficiaries of Global Biodiversity Framework Fund to use these funds most effectively. When I say use it more effectively, I mean that yes, there are immediate challenges where we are losing biodiversity, and we need to address those gaps, and we need to address those immediate needs. But align the immediate needs with the long-term prosperity, economic growth, employment generation, and making your economies more competitive. That is the only way that we will be able to, number 1, address the root causes of the biodiversity loss, and number 2, connect the development agenda with the sustainability agenda. We have the tools, we have the advisory services. I used to be head of a secretariat which was called Partnership for Action on Green Economy, where we developed the tools that how countries can invest and take policy options, which helps them not only to address the sustainability challenges, and I'm talking about the 3 challenges together, which is the nature, biodiversity, and climate change, but also connecting with the employment creation, especially for youth. That is a big challenge. The global inequality has gotten to a level which is unprecedented in human history. 50% of the world population now has only 3% share in the global GDP, and most of them are dependent on productive capacity of nature, on biodiversity resources, on ecosystem services. So investing in biodiversity, investing in GBF, GBFF is not only an investment in the environment, it is an investment in national efforts to reduce poverty, to address inequalities, etc. And a lot of those responsibility comes with the proposals that the GBF and the GBFF will receive. So make sure that we are addressing immediate needs, we are minimizing the long-term risks to our economies and prosperities, and we are connecting the sustainability agenda with the economic growth and development agendas. My last point, it's a call to action, and it's a call that we need to do it together. I think engagement in the process of developing the projects and implementing the projects, we need to take a whole of government approach. The ministries of environment alone neither created the environmental problem nor have been given the capacity and resources to solve those problems. Many of the problems that we see on the sustainability side, their solutions lie, number one, the Ministry of Finance, Economic and Development Planning need to play their role. Number two, the Ministries of Industries, Agriculture and Forestry need to play their role. And number three, what we call the whole of society approach. There are people who are directly impacted by any degradation of nature. They need to be part of the decision making, not only discussions. Every decision that we take, let's put the humans, the people, and especially those who are impacted most in the center of those decision making. So that when the benefit starts to flow to those who are closest to the nature, biodiversity and ecosystems, the protection of the nature and biodiversity will start to move much, much, much faster. So the third message that I want to give, that let's take a whole of the government and a whole of society approach. It's possible. It has been done by several countries. We have seen how the countries are connecting the three big Rio conventions in terms of their planning and implementation, which is the land degradation, climate change, and biodiversity conventions. And I think we need to bring those synergies together as we move forward. We will not be able to tackle these three problems separately. Neither we have the resources, and number two, the problems are very interconnected. So, what is my last word? My main message is that the policy and investment decisions that we take today will determine whether the future risks to our economies, our prosperity, and our nature are mitigated or amplified. Let's take the right decisions. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Asad, for really highlighting what we really need to be doing to address the Kunming Montreal Biodiversity Framework and the importance of finance, and really making sure at the end of the day biodiversity action really has to do with the sustainable development of the countries and the people. So we will open up for questions, and I request you to hold off on asking questions specific to your projects, proposals, and what have you, and because we will have a clinic after the session closes. But any questions you might have on the GBFF and other panelists here, that would be welcome. The floor is open. Please raise your hands. We'll circulate with the microphone. Huh? Okay. And yeah, I already have 3 questions. So we will ask you to identify yourself, and we will take maybe 3 questions, and we go back to the panelists for their responses. Thank you, Nick. Go ahead.
This one is now on.
Excellent.
My name is Babajide Alo. I'm from Nigeria. And my question is on the new treaty, the new High-Seas Treaty, which is also a biodiversity treaty, the BBNJ, whether it's going to fall under the GBFF or a new window is going to be opened by the GEF to fund the BBNJ, because clearly it's a treaty that will require a lot of human and capital investments for it to work. And obviously for the planet, for some of us, we think it's a very useful treaty. We're at the point now where we need to get the high seas to function properly with respect to biodiversity. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's go to the second person.
My name is Leah Kotnyawara. I'm a freelance journalist based here in Nairobi, Kenya. And my question is, how is the GBFF ensuring that biodiversity finances actually reaches grassroots communities, especially youths, indigenous groups who are really leading the front line of conservation? And the second question, if I may, what are the mechanisms, what mechanisms are being taken to reduce the bureaucratic barriers so that small organizations can directly access these funds? Thank you so much.
Very good questions. Let's go to the third person.
Take one more.
Hi, my name is Ramdayal Vaishnav. I'm from India. I'm doing my PhD on biodiversity documentation using citizen science in India. As per our study, we see that on the Global Biodiversity Information Facility, more than 60% of the data is coming from citizen science and around 40% is coming from traditional sciences. And this number is much higher in the global south. In India, we see around 98% of the data in Biological Diversity Information Facility is coming from citizen science. My question is, for the early career researchers and for, let's say, independent researchers working on topics like citizen science, where there is not much support from government or not much backing from them, how can we apply or get benefited by frameworks like GBFF? And second question is, are there any options or any sponsorship or any support to attend the COP17? Thank you.
Now, before we respond, I'd like to thank the Minister for her presence here, as well as strong support to the GEF as well as GBFF. Thank you very much, Minister. Okay, so let us quickly take those questions, not necessarily in order. Would you like to go first on the question of the local communities? And I can respond on the GBFF question. BB&J, I'm sorry.
Thank you, Chiz. Yes, so I'm happy to answer the question on indigenous peoples and local communities and how funding gets to grassroots communities. So the Global Biodiversity Framework Fund, as I mentioned in the presentation, really has indigenous peoples and local communities, IPLCs, built into its structure, its purpose, its targets. And so 20% of the financing needs to, the text says, needs to support actions by indigenous peoples and local communities. Now this is, when I first joined the GBFF, I found this an unusual term. So what we did is that we conducted consultations, extensive consultations with a wide range of stakeholders, including indigenous peoples representatives, representatives of local communities, and we put that question to them. How do you understand actions by IPLCs? And what the overwhelming reply that came back was twofold. First, that these activities that are part of the projects which are financed by the GBFF need to be aligned with self-determined priorities. So indigenous peoples and local communities, through their organizations and their decision-making structures, should determine the activities, right? So that's the first element. And the second element is a procedural element, that all the traditional decision-making structures which are recognized by IPLCs themselves need to be mobilized in reaching the decisions on how to design and implement the proposals. So effectively, you're putting IPLCs in the driver's seat. You're getting them to determine the activities which they're going to be involved in and which they can benefit from. A lot of these activities will be about direct financing, about accessing financing more directly, but not necessarily. Depending on what they determine as their priorities, it could be direct financing, but it could also be technical assistance, it could be capacity building, or any other activity which falls under the broader realm of achieving biodiversity impact. And so we put all this down in what we call the guidelines on supporting actions by IPLCs. And maybe I could ask the presentation to be put up back on the screen. There's a QR code. So you can scan the QR code and you'll be able to access the document. While Chiz answers the next question, I will put the screen. I'll put the slide back up on the screen so that you can access the document.
Thank you, Ben. Very quickly on the question that came from the gentleman from Nigeria. Is he still here? Okay, on the BBNJ. So BBNJ, when the agreement was reached in June of 2023, it established its own financial mechanisms. Right? And the GEF Trust Fund is one of the financing arms of the BBNJ. So what we have done is to set aside resources to help countries do ratification, as well as early action. And the money was released as soon as the agreement was reached. So the council decided to release the money in June of 2023. And we've had the guidelines also approved by council. So already quite a number of countries have accessed the early, not just early action, but on the ratification support. So we, as the minister from Congo talked about, we're in the middle of negotiating the next phase of the GEF support. And in there, under the international waters focal area, there's quite a bit of elements related to the BBNJ support. So we will continue to be fulfill our function as part of the financial mechanism. And that's separate, if you will, from the GBFF. I'm getting the acronyms confused, sorry. And there was also a question on the citizen science, but more to do with, I think, I'm going to respond to your second question about support provision for COP attendance. There is, let me just back up a little bit. Within the GEF, there is a fellowship program. It's called the Fonseca Conservation Fellowship. And the administration of that is basically decentralized to different academic institutions. And that's an opportunity for young scientists as well as young people who are aspiring to work in the conservation arena to get additional training as well as the network. And then there is also a separate, fairly modest resource available for those who would like to attend various major meetings and conference of the parties. The requirements are fairly straightforward, but they would have to make sure that they're part of a delegation to come and request resources, and that's determinations made by on a case-by-case basis. I hope that answers. Okay, I need to check my time. It's 4:42. Maybe we can take one more question, then I have to run to the closing of the MEA dialogue. We have two. Okay, let's go with two.
Thank you. I am Jiaul Haq from Bangladesh delegation, work for the government of Bangladesh, Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change. I have straightforward questions to Ben. Number one is that now under fifth tranche, so it is almost expired. We have only 2 days left. In terms of the sixth tranche, what would be the possible deadline that you are planning to declare? And the second point is that in terms of direct implementing entity, there are some entities already get accreditation from GCF and Adaptation Fund, whether they can apply for Biodiversity Framework Fund. These two questions. Thank you.
Thank you. So let's go to whoever had the hands up. You will be the last one. But if there are any specific questions in GBFF, we'll have a clinic afterwards too. Okay, so go right ahead.
Thank you very much. I'm Kodi Kayinga Modisto from Uganda. I'm from civil society. Thank you very much for all these updates. I just feel we know what is happening with the oil pipeline that is going to traverse from Uganda to Tanzania. I believe there are a lot that is going to be endangered, like animals and biodiversity. How can such countries or regions be prioritized so that we can mitigate the biodiversity loss, because the pipeline is going to be the largest heated oil pipeline in the world, over 1,445 kilometers. So already developments are underway, but there are no community strategies or engagements to ensure that we can preserve the biodiversity going to be taken away by the construction of the pipeline. And we feel that much as the intervention might go through the state or the government, but as civil society, we are happy to see how we can collaborate to ensure that we are able to help and mitigate the biodiversity loss brought up by this kind of multinational development projects. I thank you so much.
Thank you. Let's go to Ben for very, very brief responses before we close this segment.
Thank you very much. On the questions from the gentleman from Bangladesh, yes, the fifth tranche, actually, we've had it a little bit extended, so it closes also in a few days, but on 17th of December. Now, we don't have a sixth call for proposals planned for the time being, for the simple reason that there's a risk that we will be exhausting our remaining funds under the current call for proposals. So we would need to wait until we receive new pledges to open a new call for proposals. There will likely be funds. There will be funds available under the GEF Trust Fund starting the middle of next year, because we're opening a new cycle. This will be the GEF 9 cycle. But when it comes to GBFF, for the few months ahead, we're probably not going to have any call for proposals. Are GCF and Adaptation Fund accredited entities eligible? The GBFF, because it's part of the GEF family of funds, operates only through the 18 implementing agencies of the GEF. Having said that, if you are a GCF accredited entity or Adaptation Fund accredited entity, you can still partner as an executing entity with one of the GEF agencies. The gentleman from Uganda was asking about how we can, whether the GBFF could finance the mitigation of biodiversity loss with the building the pipeline. Is that correct? Yes. So it gets quite technical, but the GBFF, when we look at GBFF proposals, there has to be a demonstration of what we call additionality. So rather than just looking at compensating damage that has been caused by, for example, infrastructure development, what we're looking for in proposals is to go above and beyond that compensation. So there can be some elements of compensation, but by and large, the GBFF would be financing activities that go beyond that compensation and which generate net additionality compared to the baseline scenario.
All right, thank you so much, Ben. And with this, we would like to close this segment of this event. I'd like to thank the speakers who have left, but also thank Asaf for being here from the CBD, for his very strong engagement, as well as support for the GF to continue to be useful in this arena. So thank you so much. And those of you who would like to have more specific questions and to have them answered by Ben, we will continue to have a clinic, so stay tuned right here. And with that, I'm going to excuse myself to go, where am I going? The MEA closing. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Chiz and Assad. Thank you. Thank you very much, Chiz. So the last few questions have actually been quite a good segue to the second part of this session, which is really aims to provide support to those who are designing proposals, who are trying to get through the selective process, or who have any specific questions relative to the project development cycle, including implementation. So this is anyone who has any questions, feel free, especially those who are designing proposals under the current call that closes next week. So please, if you have any questions, or more general on the GBFF.
Hello. Thank you very much, Ben.